And what in heaven's name brought you to Casablanca?
My health. I came to Casablanca for the waters.
The waters? What waters? We're in the desert.
I was misinformed.
He taught me, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
You're tearing me apart!
What?
You say one thing, he says another, and everybody changes back again!
Lucky to have Senator Julia Coleman on the line with us again today. Always a pleasure to have her on. Senator, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Al. It's good to be back.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your life to do this. I got random questions. Tell me how this is going. You guys are off on a couple-week break. Do you get the feeling that the process is moving along well enough now that the House Democrats are back, everything? Are we moving to the point where this is going to be a done deal on time?
Well, you're asking me to say something that if you say it in the legislature, you have jinxed it, right? So I'm trying not to do that. It does, though. We've gotten omnibus bills through. We've been making deadlines. Things seem to be flowing well. But that tends to be the case until we get back from break. Once we get back from break is when we move from the committee portion of the legislative session to the floor debate portion of the legislative session.
No.
Suddenly we're spending hour after hour after hour on the floor together, day after day, really taking a look at what's come out of these bills and out of these committees, as well as then moving into the conference committee portion of the legislative session, which is hurry up and wait. And we are like I've said before to you, we are the worst procrastinators here. So if things are going to fall apart, it'll be probably within the last 48 hours.
Well, let me ask you some particulars then. In the education world, every superintendent, makes it sound like I've talked to millions of them. I know 3. But every one that I've talked to, administrators of superintendents, if you will, we're talking about what was given to them. And I say given to forced on them, because if you took the money, you took what you had to do. And every one of those school districts is having a tough time. Is there a school district in Minnesota not having a tough time? Rhetorical question. Are you able to fix that? Is that something that's going to get fixed with this budget now? And how? Is there any way of making this work?
The best thing they could do is not necessarily focus on the dollars, which is, of course, of utmost importance to our school, but to make the dollars they got last go around really stretch. And the way you do that is through rolling back some of the mandates and government overreach that happened over the last 2 years under the Democrat trifecta. And so for 3 weeks, if you recall, in the Senate, people always confuse the House and the Senate, but in the Senate, we had a genuine tie, not because of anything election related. We lost a member. And so for 3 weeks, I held the gavel of the Education Policy Committee, of which I'm the lead normally. And for 3 weeks, we had superintendents around the state, principals, school board members, teachers, school resource officers come and talk about how what we did over the last 2 years has really hurt their ability to serve our students. They talked about needing mandate relief. They talked about the paid family medical leave hurting their ability to find teachers. They talked about what we did to the tiered license system, making it harder for them to not only hire teachers, but teachers of color. If they have a teacher opening for 3 months while someone's out on mat leave and they want to bring in a retired teacher, we block their ability to do that. If they want to bring in a guy who's owned an auto shop for 60 years who wants to come teach a shop class for a few years, we block their ability to do that. They talked about how, because of what we did, saying you can't do any sort of physical restraint to student. You can't even suspend students anymore, how out of control their schools have gotten. And what we saw in the Senate versions of the education policy bill, it's like those 3 weeks never happened. And at the end of all those 3 weeks, I would have one of our members, Republican or Democrat, come and bring forth a bill to help try to address some of these issues. And the only ones that made it into the education policy bill was the Democrat one. And so it's like those 3 weeks we just completely ignored what the boots on the ground said. And I think our schools, from the Senate side of things, are going to see any relief whatsoever.
Well, you're going to have to come to, at some point this all comes together in committee and you have to have something come out, and I will knock on wood something good goes through this. Let me ask you this, another story in education, not necessarily what you're talking about, but there used to be a law that a state employee could not make more than the governor. Now, I'm not a state employee, but evidently my entire life I've been trying to do my best not to cross that line. But the University of Minnesota has quite a few. I think it was O'Neill, Marion O'Neill, Representative O'Neill on the House floor, was sitting in front of these folks, and she brought that up. Now, you can make more than the governor if you have an exemption. Somehow, the University of Minnesota has 2,100 human beings that have gotten exemptions to make more money than the governor. Senator, these people come to you for $500 million every 2 years because if you don't, I'm going to raise tuition. 21, I can name 4 jobs, maybe? Adjutant general, head gal, dean of student. Who else gets that kind of money? 100 of them making more than $300,000. When does that hypocrisy stop? When do people stop saying enough is enough?
Yeah, and she got married to a senator, so now Representative Rarick O'Neill is, and she has been doing a phenomenal job. It's not just the University of Minnesota. I think I touched base with you last time. It's also government-funded nonprofits that we're seeing people, well into the 6 figures, sometimes 500,000-700,000. And you're right. The U of M comes forward with their hat in their hand every single cycle and says, "We need money, or we're going to raise tuition." And it's ironic because these are probably the same professors that would say we need to cap what people can make in the private sector, which I need to attract good talent. In the university, if you have that mentality, if their argument is we need to attract the best talent, so therefore we need to pay this much money, well, then become a private institution. And I'm sure if you look at their numbers, that they could figure out how to make that possible. But, like I said last time, if you give a mouse a cookie, and that's the same for the U of M.
Do you get the feeling, other than when you have guys like me just whining and you want to be just like whine right in your... Do people seem to care when something like that comes out of the university? 2,100 people, more than the governor. That stuff just tees me off. I just want to have a why, and maybe I don't get to know because they're a land-grant university. I don't know. Do you feel that uprising of people? You talked about superintendents of schools. They're coming to, hey, we're getting crushed. Is that what you're hearing from the last 2 years? What we've done so much, we've crushed everybody?
I don't necessarily hear it about the U. I hear about it more in what is affecting people on their day-to-day lives. And that is going to be that the quality of their schools that they're sending their students to is declining. That, the rate of crime in their neighborhoods going up because we now have what's similar to a catch and release policy. They can't. Their property taxes are going up because we're shifting so much onto the county school district. So I do hear that we've been doing too much in the legislature, and by we, I mean the trifecta. Not necessarily about the U. That doesn't seem to fill my inbox. It's what's impacting people day to day.
Did anybody, because we've been talking about on this show, did anybody get a hold of you? Do you feel anything with this 2-year and community college, what I call it, ghost students? It was in the paper yesterday for the Star Trib. Basically, Century College, 15% of their students weren't actually students. They were just people in who knows where, filling out the paperwork, sitting in a seat and getting federal funds for it. In the paper, it said, we could force them to come to at least one class a year, to make sure they're humans and somebody who lives in the state. But they said that would be a lot of work. And I'm like, yeah, it's not easy running a college, I can't presume.
What Representative Rarick is uncovering, and keep a close eye on conservative media because I'm not necessarily seeing it get picked up elsewhere, is that there is a culture of fraud in Minnesota. And some of the things told me that they're not ready to publish yet. I mean, it's absolutely astonishing. They have made a whole industry off of fraud here, and we need somebody to come crack down on it.
Yeah, Minnesota Doge. Let's go to break. When we come back, I want to ask you more about some Senate issues. Obviously, they're going on ethics-wise, and we'll discuss it on the other side. I've got her, Senator Julia Coleman, on the Al Travis Show.
If it's your turn to host a game, Grandpa's Barbecue suggests you try something different. Put out the perfect barbecue flavor of Grandpa's Barbecue. Add it to your ribs, dip the meatballs, or drench your wings in the original flavor of Grandpa's Barbecue. It isn't too hot or spicy, fruity or smoky or whatever. Grandpa's Barbecue. Available in select stores and online at grandpasbarbecueshop.com.
There are many ways to explore Alexandria. Some like to experience the outdoors and all the fun winter in Minnesota can provide. Pick your favorite way to get in touch with nature. Others like to explore downtown in the warm comfort of a boutique or gathered around a table with friends. You can do all of that or relax and do nothing at all. Come explore Alexandria. Start planning at explorealex.com.
The Al Travis Show, the last place you can go and hear all sides. Respectful, thoughtful, and grateful.
We have Senator Julia Coleman on with us, and I'm very happy to have her on. I want to talk about Senator Bobby Joe Champion a little bit because obviously he makes the news. He is a lawyer, president of the Senate, on the Ethics Committee, and he's pulled himself off of that now because of what may or may not end up being ethical conflicts. Let me ask you this. Senator, when you became a senator, do y'all get a morning's class on what that means and how things work? You know, I think guys have to wear ties. Yada. Do you have that? Is there an ethics class that you're getting? Because it seems strange to me, the head of the Ethics Committee, the president of the Senate, this guy's been here forever, and a lawyer, just felt he didn't have to raise his hand and say, by the way, I like Bobby Joe. I met him twice. Is that not stuff you all discuss going in?
It is. We have a full day orientation that we do touch on kind of ethical things, conflict of interest, stuff like that. And it's been a really rough 2 years. I think when we get back from break, it'll be the 1-year anniversary of Senator Mitchell's arrest.
Yep.
We've had obviously the Eichhorn issue and now this. It's not been a great look for the Senate lately.
No, not at all. But my point is it self-inflicted? And what I mean by that, he, again, innocent until proven guilty. I'm not trying to rip him here. But he knew the guy. He knew this reverend guy. He'd done work pro bono, which may be the reason you don't have to mention it. I don't know. But yet he put in a bill that he wanted to give this guy $3 million to help this Minneapolis stop the fights thing. Okay. All of it's legit as get out. Fine, I can give you that. Aren't you all told to fall on the side of overtelling when he makes that bill, says, by the way, I did nonprofit for this guy. I did some work for him, just so you know, before you vote. And then there would be none of this. It seems strange that this is all about not raising your hand and saying, oh, by the way, I know that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I think we're always taught to err on the side of caution. And so it's certainly a gray area what's happened here. I'm sure the ethics committee will shed more light on what exactly went down, violated our rules or whatsoever. But I'll give you an example. My husband's aunts run a nonprofit actually in Senator Champion's district.
Okay.
And I'm happy to support them and all that, but they came to the legislature with a funding request. And even though I don't personally benefit from any of it, I stayed off the bill because they are family and said, you know, even if this makes it into the bonding bill, I might have to just recuse myself from the bonding bill, just in an abundance of caution. And so I think that is probably the route most senators should take. And we clearly didn't see that here.
And so, how do I put it? Is that enough then? Again, as I understand it, it was pro bono work that he did for them, so he didn't make any money. So that might be a quote unquote the loophole. Is this something then, as senators? I find it weird that we're still talking about this as Minnesota's been around, 150, 200 years. That this is something we've not run into before. Do we need a rule, a hard and fast one on this? Like you mentioned, Mitchell, 2 years in, we can't tell what to do with this, and we'll have to wait until the trial's done. Does this just go away because in 4 or 5 weeks this session's over?
I don't think it'll go away, not necessarily, but I can tell you based on the outcome I've seen from the ethics committee, if something as serious as what happened with Senator Mitchell is going to be a 2-2 vote, which means nothing happens in the ethics committee, I would imagine this will go the same way. Well,
that's kind of my point, and I guess just from folks looking from the outside, these things don't really matter. And again, I believe he's innocent until proven guilty. But if this was inappropriate, let's say it was, and there's kickbacks, that money's spent. It's gone. And we're going to sit here with a 2-2 tie. I don't know that it goes anywhere. It seems strange to me we don't have hard and fast rules. And I'm innocent until proven guilty with Bobby Joe Champion. I like the man. I don't know why you wouldn't raise your hand and said, hey, I did some pro bono work with these people before. Why not?
Right.
I guess I just missed that, and that's too bad. One last thing. I know everybody's cutting the budget. They're cutting the budget so much I'm going to starve to death here. I believe this budget will be between $65 and $70 billion when it's all said and done. And that is a cut from 2 years ago when we spent $18 billion that was just flown into the state on a parachute. Is the new norm 71, and we're going to work from that number from here on out?
I don't necessarily think from here on out. I think that Republicans certainly have an appetite to slash a lot more, some to go to pre-COVID levels of spending. I know Speaker Davis is getting an unfair amount of scrutiny because they are only spending $2 billion. But you have to remember, having been in somewhat of her shoes when the Senate Republicans were in the majority, any single time we compromised, we were just lit on fire with our base. And then our base, eyes wide open, saw under the Democrat trifecta what we stopped: tax hikes, gas tax increases, abortion up until birth, mandates on school, small business crushing policies. Once you see what we're able to stop, that $2 billion that she was actually able to cut, you go, wow, I'm wondering what else she was able to just put her foot down and say, absolutely not, this is a line in the sand. So I applaud her for even getting that far, given the makeup of the legislature right now.
Where do you think it ends up, though? I mean, she's doing all she can, but where does this budget end up? And everybody wants a cut. Even the governor's willing to go off that $71 billion. But are we not making, let's say it's 68. At 68, everyone says we cut something, but now that's the new floor, right? You talk pre-COVID, that's $52 billion by the people, for folks listening, that's $1 billion. Pre-COVID would $52 billion.
I think if we saw a Republican trifecta come forth, we would see significant cuts past the $2 billion, particularly when you see what Representative Rarick is doing and with some of the Doge-like efforts here in Minnesota uncovering just an industry of waste fraud, an industry of people making exorbitant incomes off of the tax. I think we could get there.
You do? Okay. It'll be interesting to see. I thank you. For folks who don't know, you guys are off on vacation. A lot of you folks don't have to do this for a living when you're off on vacation, for heaven's sakes. But I thank you for taking the time to come in this program. I really do appreciate you, Senator.
Absolutely. I'm going to go take the boys fishing now, but I appreciated the with you.
I appreciate your time. Senator Julia Coleman on the Al Travis Show.